Okay, let's start with a simple question. So, what is the unit of speed? So, speed is measured in kilometers per hour, or maybe in miles per hour, depending on where you live. But I live in Europe, so I will keep kilometers per hour. So, the kilometers is a unit of distance. Hours is, of course, the unit of time. So since the speed is measured in kilometers per hour, so it means that speed equals distance over time. So this horizontal line is like in a fraction, so it means you divide distance by time. To avoid writing the whole words like speed, distance, in physics, we introduce some symbols. So usually we denote speed by v for some reason, distance by s, and the only logical thing is to denote time by t. So anyway, speed, distance, time. So to calculate speed, you take distance, you divide by time. First of all, this formula, this simple equation, is not applicable everywhere. It's applicable if you have constant speed, which means you drive all the time with the same speed, all the time 50 kilometers per hour. Or it can be the average speed. So it means like then you divide the total distance by total time. So for example, you drive a car through the city and you start from traffic lights, you accelerate, then you decelerate, and so on and so forth. But if you then measure your total distance and the time of the whole journey, you divide this total distance by total time, you obtain speed, the average speed. So let's take an example. So for example, suppose you are driving 40 kilometers, it's your distance, and you did it in half an hour. Okay, so then you can calculate speed. Speed is distance, so 40 kilometers divided by time, so half an hour, by calculator or in mind if you can, you get that this is 80 kilometers per hour. Okay, another example. Now let's say I'm driving with speed of 50 kilometers per hour. What distance I travel in 1 hour? So it's pretty simple. 50 kilometers per hour, so it means in 1 hour I travel 50 kilometers. In 2 hours, well, in 2 hours I will drive 100 kilometers. In 3 hours, 150. In half an hour, 25 kilometers. So how can I obtain these answers? So for example, let's take this. So distance 100 kilometers is obtained if what you really do, you multiply 50, its speed, by 2, which is time. So you see, you get distance s by multiplying v, speed, times t, your time. So distance is speed times time. You can also get this by arranging from this equation. So look, you have our original equation. This is the most important, the only equation of today's lesson. So v is s over t. So you multiply both sides by t. So on the left hand side you have v times t. On right hand side, so t is like t over 1. So t cancels out and you get s. So indeed you obtain this formula. Distance equals speed multiplied by time. Okay, another example. So suppose you are driving again 50 kilometers per hour. Now the question is how much time it will take you to drive the distance of 200 kilometers. And the answer is pretty simple. You feel that the answer is 4 hours. How did you get it? So what you do, you divide 200 by 50 and you obtain 4 hours. So your time is 4 hours. So what you do to calculate time, you take distance and you divide by speed. Another way of thinking about it. Let's take our starting our most important formula, speed equals distance over time, and let's plug in what we know. So speed we know is 50. So instead of v, I write 50 equals. Instead of distance, I write 200. Okay, instead, and time I don't know, so I write t. So now it's an equation and t is an unknown of this equation. So I multiply by t. So I have 50 times t equals, again, t cancels out on the right hand side, so I have 200. So in order to calculate t, I divide by 50, so t is 200 divided by 50, so it's 4 hours again. Another way, let's start on working on symbols, on letters. So I have v equals s over t. Let's multiply this by t. So it's v times t equals s. This we already had today. And I want to have only t on the left hand side because, well, this is what I'm looking for. So I divide this by v. So t equals s over v, and I obtain what I had. Alright, and the last thing, I would like to make some graphs or plots. So first, let's suppose I'm driving with 20 kilometers per hour. That's my speed. And let's start with distance measured in kilometers versus time measured in hours. Here is 0, 1 hour. So if I drive with speed 20 kilometers per hour, after 1 hour, my distance is 20. After 2 hours, well, 40 kilometers. So here is 40. After 3 hours, it will be 60. And so on. Just lines to make sure it looks good. And also in between, in half, so my speed is all the time the same. We in physics call it constants when it doesn't change. So we have constant speed. So for example, in half an hour, distance is 10 kilometers and so on. So we can connect the points and I should get the straight line. Okay, so I would say the distance is proportional to time. Another graph. So now let's keep time on horizontal axis, 1, 2, 3 hours, and let's keep now speed on the vertical axis, speed in kilometers per hour. But speed is all the time the same, so it's all the time 20, no matter after which time. So the plot of the speed is just the horizontal constant line. So now let me draw line like this to limit on 3 hours, like here. And look, I obtain a rectangle, and if I calculate the area of this rectangle is 20 times 3, of course, so it's 60. And look, this is exactly the distance after 3 hours. And it's not just by chance. So this is because here is speed, v, here is time, t. So we know that if we multiply speed by time, we obtain distance. This rule is not always true. As I told you, our equation v equals s over t is only correct, only applicable for uniform motion, so when the speed is constant or when you calculate the average speed. So this also is not always true, but what is true is that the distance is area below plot of this function, let's say. So area is our distance, and this will remain true also for other motions, which we will discuss on our next lessons. But first we will solve some little problem regarding this motion with constant speed.